So I want to add one piece on this discussion about, you know, getting started. And that is, a lot of people get hung up on the idea is everything. Everything. The idea is everything. No, 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 no. Execution on the idea is everything. Okay? Got to have great people, or at least good enough people who are working on it. Why? Because when you have an idea, you just have an idea. You haven't verified that the customers are going to use it. And you've got to go out and talk to the customers. It takes a good team to pivot. Okay? What's a pivot? A pivot is a major change. So, for example, instead of saying, I'm going to sell to banks or I'm going to sell to XYZ, boy, I tell you, those people might be the gatekeeper. They just may not let you in the door. They may not want to hear from you. And I've had that situation. So maybe the pivot is instead of using selling to an organization, you sell to individuals. Okay. And I've known startups that couldn't make that pivot. You need to be able to make those pivots. That means you got to have a good team and they've got to be willing to execute on the idea and change the idea if necessary. Now, if you've got your startup and you've said, I'm initially going to price this at $4.99, and then you say, well, we think we can get, twice as many customers if we go to $3.99, and you think, okay, well, price change. Well, price change is not a pivot. It's just a price change. Who your target marketplace is, changing that's a pivot. That's a major change. So anyway, understand that. I've been in startups where people don't want to make changes and they're just, make my software work. And it's like, no, it won't work because your target market's wrong. So I've been there and they're like, what do you mean? My target market's what I figured out. And I want to give you an example. So I talked about a startup down out of Atlanta that I did work for 15 plus years ago now. And won't bother you with the details of who they were. But, we were building the software, and I had been asked initially, don't talk about the users, because if you talk about the users, then we're going to have to go and examine all these, basic things that they think, and we don't want to go do that. We just want them paying. And I was like, okay, fine. And I wish I had not listened to that advice. We should have been talking to the users initially, because what we found out is the target market didn't want it. They did not want it, period. They hated it. Why? So let's roll back to 2007. What is mobile? Let's define mobile. Okay. At that time, somebody had defined mobile as laptops with Ethernet cables. What? Somebody is not going to go on vacation and pull out their laptop and write 20 minutes of content into your system. It's just not going to happen. Okay, but this was a location-based system, and I already knew this, but I was along for the ride. And, things weren't going well. And we had this website. We were making continual changes to it. And we were doing this and doing that. And traffic was never going up. It was never increasing. Okay, fine. Well, so I go out to talk to some actual users. What did I find out? Users didn't want it. Shocker there, right? But what they did want is, and I thought, I've never forgotten this one girl who explained it to me the best. She said, I want to go on my BlackBerry. BlackBerry was the thing at the time. The iPhone had literally just shipped at that point, so not many people had it. She's like, but I want to go on my BlackBerry, and I want to hit a button on my BlackBerry, and I want all my data to spread out to all my friends. And I was like, I get it. It was one of those things I could understand. And so I took that idea, started asking other people. I was like, hey, would you use this? Yeah. Well, okay. So now we've got something that we've actually verified from users somebody would use. Typically with consumer products, it's really hard to get them to pay for it. But we had some financing money already. And the problem became the guy who's actually had the initial idea would just, it was, just not my plan. That's not my plan. That's not my plan. And I was like, the users don't care about your plan. They don't want your plan. And so when I talk about co-founders who get along, this is one of the type of people that I'm talking about. Okay. And, when you've got a co-founder who's just my idea, and you see that a lot in startups, it just poisons the whole team. So have a team that will make changes. Ask them beforehand, will you make changes? Can you pivot? Can you communicate that back? Instead of hearing, because I'd never forget, I heard this one time, you're just not explaining it right. I was like, explaining it? The users are explaining to us how they view our product. And, we can try to market it however we want to, but the users are going to tell us, and we need to make it as easy for them to get to what they want and what they'll use. That's a very important thing. Okay, it's a subtle piece, really, really important. And so I really wanted to talk about it kind of on its own. Anyway, think about that. Think about having a team that can execute on an idea and pivot as necessary. All right, thanks.